Before we get to that, we are going to take a few minutes to talk about an entirely different story, which we haven't had a chance to touch on here today, because a bicycle which once belonged to Diana, Princess of Wales, is to be sold at auction. Before her engagement, Diana Spencer, as she was, often rode her 1970s blue rally traveller around London. She used to use it to cycle to work at a nursery school in Kensington. But the bike apparently was deemed unfit for a princess, and it was sold once she became engaged to Prince Charles. So it's going to be sold at auction now. Let's speak to the auctioneer. Mark Ellin joins me from East Sussex. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jane.
So, what can you tell us about this bike?
Well, I think this is just a prime example that you never know what's coming through the front door next. It's a really unique item. Outwardly, it's just a blue, rusty 1970s rally bike, as you said, but with one very important previous owner. And she was quite famously photographed riding this bike to work every day. Remember, she was only 18 or 19 years old at the time, so this was her mode of transport. But as soon as she was engaged to be married, they didn't think that it was suitable transport for a princess. So it was suggested she should hide it away, which is what she did. And then consequently, about the time of the royal wedding in 1981, she sold it for just a few pounds to a friend of her father's. And it was just tucked away for quite a few years, and here it is in our sale rooms.
And I mean, we've seen a few images of the bike now. I mean, now I don't want to be rude, but a cynic might say, well, if I'm going to bid for this, how do I really know it was hers?
Well, we're completely relying on a letter that we have with it. So it's a letter of provenance from the friend of Diana's father, who is the original owner of the bike. So it's a letter from him to say that he bought it from Diana's father and that it was her bike that she used when she lived in London. And it has quite a history to this bike, and it was dubbed the shame bike because it was thought to be shameful to use it, for a princess to use it around London.
Oh my goodness, could you imagine that? The very notion that there was something embarrassing about it. We're trying to encourage people to go around London on bikes now. Well, I mean, is it in working order? You said it was a little bit rusty, but I mean, if someone buys it, they can use it, can they?
Well, it looks it, but it seems sacrilege to actually sit on it, doesn't it?
Have you not sat on it, Mark?
I honestly haven't.
You haven't had a quick little test. Maybe you wouldn't tell me if you had. So what sort of what sort of value are you expecting then? What are you expecting?
Well, it was sold a few years ago at auction. So about 5 years ago, it came up for sale, and it did make nearly £10,000 then. The interest has moved on from then. There's far more interest in the royal family in general, particularly Diana. And in the wake of the Crown, the series, there just seems to be a global interest now, and our auctions reach a global audience, and so our estimate's 15 to 20,000, and we think that's attainable.
Wow. And actually, in all seriousness, presumably the way auctions are run now, I mean, you will have people on the line, presumably from all over the world, I guess.
For the last year, our auctions have been completely online. So we have no audience in the room. So that's quite unusual. We just have a computer. The audience is in the thousands, and they're all over the world. We don't know who the buyers are. They're all anonymous. And it's a completely different experience to what it used to be. But we're getting used to it, and it's gone very well.
OK, well, all the best for that. Thank you very much. Mark Ellin, thank you very much indeed. You can let me know privately later whether you really have had just a quick race around the block. Thank you very much. Mark Ellin from the auctioneers Burstow and Hewitt there in East Sussex.